I just want to talk about some things that are worth noticing with what's happening in South Africa right now and why you should even care about South Africa, because I know most people outside of the continent of Africa don't care, and that's unfortunate. I mean, innocent people are losing their lives and in gruesome ways. Of course, but James, that's been happening for decades. Well, that's true, but it's really ramped up now. And you should care because look at a fairly civilized, developed country. Some parts of it, you could confuse it for any part of Canada or America except for that blaring sunlight and everything, but basically, it's worth noticing how even that can fall. Civilization can always fall. Your society can always fall. Being a developed country is not something you should take for granted. You have to hold on to it because it's tenuous. And it's also worth noticing to see how poisonous racial narratives are, and yet at the same time how race is important. It's almost like a war of every racial group against every other racial group in South Africa, and there's always been those tensions. And I love what Serpent ZA said last night in his live stream about all this, and I've been waiting for him to talk about this, because he grew up in South Africa. He still has friends and family there. Some of his friends and family there have been murdered over the years. I think he said he saw his first dead body when he was like a toddler. Like, he knows all about it. I was waiting for him to talk about it, and it was very illuminating watching that live stream. Most of you I know won't watch it because it's 2 hours long. He gets emotional, he fights back the tears, and he tries not to go in too much detail about seeing things like people being necklaced. I'm afraid to even describe what that means. And no, it's not a Cuban necktie. It's really brutal. And the mob mentality, and just random lynchings on made-up crazy allegations, and all the rest of it. Yeah, it's been going on for a long time in South Africa, but in the past couple weeks, it's just really blown up, and it seems, now he doesn't quite go into this, but it's pretty obvious that there is some orchestration going on. There's a now somewhat viral clip going around of a black pastor recounting a phone call that he got, telling him to instruct his parishioners. Like, apparently community leaders around South Africa are getting these phone calls where they're saying, tell your people to go out and to attack Indian and white people, and to burn down Indian businesses and white businesses.
Done with that looting. Go to Indian areas, not me saying that, I'm saying the court says that. Go to Indian communities, go there and kill Indians and burn their houses. Go to white areas, go there once you are done with looting, go there and kill white community, then and burn their houses.
So there's definitely a racial component here. There are racial narratives that are true, and there are ones that are false, and the racial narratives that we tend to believe in and have foisted upon us here in the West about the rest of the world and reality at large are lopsided, they're bullshit. Everybody at this point knows. If you're a listener of mine, you know about the plight of white farmers in South Africa. Winston, aka Serpent ZA, his parents are said white farmers, or were. I'm not sure if they're even alive anymore. He doesn't go into it. I think they might have been brutally fucking slaughtered, even though they only just recently bought their farm. And that's one of the false narratives. If you do bring up white farmers in South Africa, people are like, but they've had that land for generations and they've stolen it from black people. No, people like Winston, his parents bought that land fair and square, and they've only had it for a couple decades, or not even 2 decades, and something horrible happened to them. And then we in the West turn a blind eye because that doesn't fit with the narrative that it's always white people that are the aggressors. Now, at the same time, there are racial narratives, there are racial facts, there are racial tensions that have always been going on, that have always existed in South Africa, and it's not merely white and black. A lot of you have heard me go on about how it blows my mind how simplistic rednecks are in Canada and America, where there's only white or black, and I point out, don't call me black, I'm brown, or maybe Indian, even though that's kind of confusing because my heritage is an Indian for several generations. Anyways, in a place that's truly multi-ethnic like South Africa, it's understood that brown people and black people do not necessarily get along. There's a lot of tension. Anyways, another thing that's worth mentioning, pointing out to the whole defund the police, losers, children. Let's face it, the defund the police people are children. Something that anybody with a functioning brain always knows is if you get rid of the police, there's just going to be something else to fill that vacuum. You have to have law enforcement. You have to, otherwise you don't have civilization. And since they threw out the Afrikaans government in South Africa and replaced it with the African National Congress, profoundly corrupt, basically a criminal organization, and South Africa has slowly but surely been falling apart, and then within the past couple of weeks falling apart even more quickly, There's never really been functioning police in South Africa, according to Winston, and I definitely believe him. There's never really been functioning police forces in South Africa. So now that black rioters and looters are apparently being instructed to go into Indian neighborhoods and loot and burn and pillage and all the rest of it, and the Indians can't call the police to protect these beautiful neighborhoods that could look like a suburb of any North American city almost, except for the fauna and the intense sun, the Indians are having to rely on private security. Police, but they're not police, they're private security, so they're slightly less governed by the rule of law. And as somebody who used to be a security guard, trust me, I'd rather trust my life to a cop than a security guard, because the vast majority of security guards are either incompetent and weak, or they're psychotic and incompetent. Anyways, so you see this footage, and I can't really show it, of private security forces going around these beautiful Indian neighborhoods just picking off black people. Fucking crazy, right? It's crazy, but hey, that's what happens when you don't have a functioning police service. Oh, but what's his name? The new president is sending in military to take care of things. It's sending in like 25,000 troops. Again, the military is going to be dysfunctional as fuck, and that's not enough troops to do anything given the scale of what's happening in South Africa right now. We should notice that this appears to be orchestrated. So destabilizing a country on the basis of race. Where have we seen that before? We're seeing it everywhere. Winston Serpentzadeh goes off a little bit about how irritated, how aggravated, how infuriated he gets when he sees the BLM and Antifa crew going off about how deeply racist America is. You want to see racism? Go to South Africa. Go to basically any other country. But using the wrong pronouns or the wrong word, or most of it just comes down to words and expression in America and Canada. Mostly. And that's deeply racist? Go fuck yourself. You want to see racism? You want to see true, brutal, horrific, horrendous racial tension? Go to South Africa, even China where he's lived as well. But Winston doesn't mention what I've mentioned and many other people have mentioned many times, that there's an artificial nature to these criticisms about America being deeply racist and Canada being deeply racist. People like Soros. Nobody's mentioned his name yet in connection with South Africa, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. But people like Soros. I don't know if him and his crew are at all behind these phone calls going out trying to inflame racial tensions in South Africa even beyond what they already were to an absolute frenzied state. But we know people like him are behind trying to inflame racial tensions in Canada. Remember just before COVID? Remember what was happening? The so-called Afro-Indigenous uprising, this very artificial way of connecting Indigenous people with African Canadians and trying to get them to riot and taking over Nathan Phillips Square. Remember all that stuff? And setting fire to trains and stuff? Remember all that? And there was definitely an artificiality about that. There was definitely an orchestrated nature to all of that. Just like BLM and Antifa. They're elitists. They have connections to elitists. They have connections to people like Soros and others. They orchestrate. They instigate. They intentionally inflame tensions. Why? Why is all this happening in South Africa and Canada everywhere to varying degrees? Obviously much more frenzied and violent and horrific in South Africa. But why is it happening? Because destabilizing countries by pitting various either ethnic groups, religious groups, or class-based groups against each other, destabilizing a nation on that basis paves the way, opens the door for something new to come in and take over: communism. Or just simply the elite taking over in whatever guise, shape, form, political system they feel suits their needs. Usually it's communism, socialism, because that's the easiest to sell to stupid people. Oh, it's just about helping poor people? That's awesome. Oh, yes, but it's about workers' rights. That's oh so awesome. Anyways, clearly what's happening in South Africa is being orchestrated, at least on some level, as much as you can control chaos. And it's worth paying attention to see how a basically pretty well-organized, well-functioning infrastructure of any country in Africa can fall like this. So don't think it couldn't happen in Canada or America. Yeah, we're far away from that, but we need to fight to hold on to what we have, because civilization is tenuous. It's tenuous. Anyway, some of you are probably saying, James, you only care about South Africa because you're afraid you're not going to be able to get your favorite snuff. It's only my favorite morning time snuff, but geez, has South African snuff ever really helped me to quit smoking? Nasal snuff, I don't put it in my mouth anyways. I hope I can still get my Guai, my Intu, my Babaton snuffs, nasal snuffs. Here's hoping. Anyways, folks, it's the middle of the month, and I'm always extremely broke by this time. If you're able to help out with a couple bucks with a PayPal donation or a Patreon patronage, then check out the links on the screen now and in the description below. Otherwise, let me know what you thought in the comments, and like and share and subscribe. And tell me, do you care about South Africa? If so, why? If not, why not? And if you want to get a little bit deeper into all this, check out Winston Serpent Zede's video on it. Thanks a lot, folks. Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.